Finley House had been standing on the edge of Bleakwood, Maine, for as long as anyone could remember. Old-timers said it was cursed. Kids called it haunted. Adults avoided it like a bad memory. It sat at the end of Harper's Hill, its windows dark, its porch rotted, its walls gray and peeling like old skin, and in that house, there was a room. They called it the Red Room. Nobody knew what was inside. Doors wouldn't open. Windows wouldn't budge. For 70 years, people had tried. Sledgehammers, crowbars, chainsaws, it didn't matter. The Red Room stayed shut. Like it was waiting, or hiding something. "You're all chicken," Tommy Briggs said, flicking his cigarette into the weeds. It was a Saturday night in September, the kind that smelled like dying leaves and cheap beer. Tommy stood with his friends, Jesse, Mike, and Sarah, in the woods behind Bleakwood High. They were 17. They were bored. And they had something to prove. "Chicken, my ass," Jesse shot back. "We'll see who's chicken when you're crying on the floor of that room." Tommy smirked. "Nobody's ever been in that room." Sarah, the quiet one, hugged herself. "Maybe there's a reason." Mike rolled his eyes. "Jesus, Sarah. It's just a room." Tommy's grin widened, hungry and mean. "Then prove it." He held up the key. It was old, rusted, the teeth jagged like a dead man's smile. My uncle worked for the town. He had the only key to Finley House. Found it in his garage. They all stared at it like it was a loaded gun. "Tonight," Tommy said. "We go in. We find the Red Room. We open it. First one to chicken out buys beer for a month." Jesse grinned, Mike cracked his knuckles, Sarah shivered, but none of them said no. Finley House looked worse up close. The porch sagged. The shingles were scattered like dead leaves. The front door groaned open with a sound like bones grinding together. Inside, the air was heavy, like someone had bottled the smell of rot and regret. Dust hung in the air like ghosts. They clicked on their flashlights. The beams cut through the darkness, revealing old furniture draped in sheets, faded wallpaper peeling in long, curling strips. Sarah whispered, "I don't like it here." Tommy sneered. "That's the point." They moved through the house, their footsteps echoing on the warped floorboards. The house seemed to breathe around them. Doors creaked without wind. Stairs moaned under their weight. Finally, they found it. The Red Room. The door was old, painted deep crimson. The paint was fresh somehow. Wet-looking. Like it had just been brushed on. Mike reached for the knob. Jesse grabbed his arm. "Wait." They all stared at the door. None of them spoke. None of them moved. Sarah whispered, "Do you hear that?" They listened. There it was, a soft, wet sound. Like breathing. From behind the door, Tommy licked his lips. "Let's open it." He slid the key into the lock. It turned, the door creaked open, and everything changed. Inside the Red Room, the air was red, the walls, the floor, the ceiling. All red. But not paint, it looked like skin. It pulsed. It dripped, the room stank of iron and rot. They stepped inside, flashlights flickering. The door slammed shut behind them, the room stretched, twisted, the angles all wrong. Shadows bled into the walls. Whispers crawled into their ears. "Get out," Sarah whispered, tears running down her cheeks, but the door was gone. They turned, spinning, the room shifting, the red deepening to black in places. Shapes moved in the corners. Faces. Hands. Who's chicken now? Tommy laughed, but it sounded wrong. Too loud. Too sharp. The room laughed back. The laughter came from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The Red Room wasn't just a room, it was alive. The room wanted them. Mike was the first to go. Something grabbed him from the shadows, dragging him into the walls, his screams muffled like someone screaming underwater. Jessie tried to break down the door, but the wood absorbed her fists, pulling her in up to the elbows. She begged them to help her. They couldn't. The room wouldn't let them. Tommy screamed at the walls. Cursed them. He dared them to take him. The room obliged. He was swallowed whole. Sarah was the last. She curled into a ball, sobbing. The room whispered to her. It told her its secrets. It had been waiting. It was hungry. It needed new blood to stay strong. To keep the house alive. To keep the curse alive, and now, it had them. They found Finley House empty the next morning. No kids. No bodies. The red room door was locked tight. No sign of struggle. The sheriff shook his head. Kids, he muttered, but some of the old-timers in Bleakwood knew better. They remembered. They whispered. Finley House had to be fed, and the red room always got what it wanted. Ray Parsons was a man down to his last cigarette, last dollar, and last nerve. It was late November when the cold wind hit his face like a slap every time he stepped outside. And yet, sitting in the grimy bus station in Fargo, the cold inside was worse somehow. It crawled up his sleeves and down his spine, like the place had a secret draft only meant for people like him, drifters, losers, has-beens. His fingers were stained with years of bad choices and cheap whiskey. His jacket smelled like someone else's dog, and his boots had holes he couldn't see anymore but felt every step. Ray didn't have a plan. He'd given up on those sometime after his third divorce and fifth job termination. The only thing keeping him up right now was the worn ticket in his hand. One way. To Harrow Pines. He hadn't heard of the place. He didn't care. It was cheap. The lady behind the dirty plexiglass window had looked at him funny when he asked for it, though. Like she wanted to say something, but didn't. The last bus runs at 11, she said, punching the stub with a metal clack that echoed in the empty station. Now, the clock overhead ticked toward 11 p.m., each second a slow drumbeat toward nowhere. The bus arrived on time, which was strange in itself. It groaned up to the curb, hissing and whining like an old, tired animal. The paint was faded, letters ghosting off the sides. Ray could barely make out the route sign, the words almost eaten away by grime and weather. Harrow Pines, last stop. He climbed aboard. The driver was an old man with a face like dried leather and a smile that never quite touched his cloudy eyes. Ticket. The man rasped. Ray handed it over. The driver's fingers brushed his, cold and papery. Last seat in the back, the driver said. No stops. No talking. Ray blinked. No talking. The driver grinned wider. You'll see. Ray walked down the narrow aisle, the bus lights flickering overhead. It was like walking through a tunnel of ghosts. The seats were filled, but no one looked at him. They all stared straight ahead. Men in gray suits, women in faded dresses. Kids with blank faces. Ray swallowed hard. Something about them, it wasn't right. They all looked old-fashioned, like people from black and white photos. Their clothes. Their hairstyles. Like they belonged to a different time. He slumped into the last seat, heart thudding. The bus rumbled to life, pulling away from the station. The city lights faded fast, swallowed by miles of empty black highway. The windows reflected nothing but shadows, and the road signs grew rarer and older the farther they drove. Ray tried to sleep. Tried not to look at the other passengers. But every time the bus hit a bump, he caught glimpses of them. A boy in a striped shirt with a hole in his neck, a woman holding a faded purse, blood leaking from her ears, a man in a fedora with empty, gaping eye sockets. Ray's mouth went dry. His heart hammered like a trapped animal. He tried to speak. To ask the driver what the hell was going on. But when he opened his mouth, nothing came out. His voice, gone. He fumbled for his phone. No signal. Just a battery icon flickering like it was gasping for breath. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw something scrawled in black marker on the back of the seat in front of him. They took the last bus to Harrow Pines, but they never got off. The bus finally screeched to a stop. Ray blinked. They were there. Harrow Pines, it looked like a town forgotten by time. Neon signs flickered half dead. Gas stations with rusted pumps. Motels with vacancy signs blinking like tired eyelids. The passengers shuffled off in silence, Disappearing into the fog-drenched streets, Ray followed, legs like wet noodles. The bus hissed, turned around, and was gone, and he was alone, or so he thought.